What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic: Manny Pacquiao takes the easier route, will fight Errol Spence instead of the more dangerous Crawford. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. We're gonna chop it up. All right, so in a shocker of an announcement, it was recently announced that Errol Spence, who we all have been waiting for, for an announcement to fight Yordenis Ugas. It was just announced that Errol Spence will be fighting no other than the one and only Manny Pacquiao in August of this summer. So the announcement is that Errol Spence will face Manny Pacquiao in August. Now that's shocking news to some, to most actually, because everyone was looking forward for the announcement that Spence was gonna fight Yordenis Ugas in a unification bout, for his belt, the WBO title. However, this announcement, has been delayed and it never actually came. And now instead of Spence fighting Ugas, we see that Spence is, announced to be fighting Manny Pacquiao in August. Now, we all know about the negotiations between Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford that has been ongoing, and the final word on those negotiations were that Terence Crawford refused the fight with Manny Pacquiao because although the fight was supposed to be for a $40 million or $50 million fight, as was reported, it was also reported that Manny Pacquiao wanted Terence Crawford to take an 80-20 split, and that in the final negotiations, Crawford was unwilling to take an 80-20 split against Manny Pacquiao, and so that fight never came about. It was also reported that Manny Pacquiao was, in negotiations to fight Mikey Garcia, which has been, reported now for over a year now about those negotiations. So there was like a two negotiations going on, or reports that Manny Pacquiao was either going to fight Mikey Garcia or Terence Crawford, and those that went back and forth until finally it was reported that the negotiation with Terence Crawford was off because he refused to take the 80-20 split, and now we see an announcement that Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Errol Spence, and it doesn't look like the Errol Spence Ugas fight, is going to happen anytime soon. So this is definitely a shocker, for boxing fans. Now, nobody is disappointed that Errol Spence is going to fight Manny Pacquiao. Errol Spence has been chasing that fight now for the past 2 years, and it looks like he has finally landed the fight. But everybody, like I said, is kind of shocked because they were expecting an announcement for Yordenis Ugas unification bout, but instead, Errol Spence is now fighting Manny Pacquiao in August. So it looks like Manny Pacquiao has decided to take the easier route against Errol Spence than the more dangerous Terence Crawford. Due to negotiations falling apart with Crawford and possibly with Mikey Garcia as well. Now we don't know what happened, why this fight wasn't made between Mikey Garcia and Manny Pacquiao. After the Terence Crawford negotiation fell apart, we're not sure what went into the decision. In not fighting Mikey Garcia, what the negotiation was all about, or what was there, if any issues involved in those negotiations. But as we can see, that fight is not happening because the Errol Spence fight is the one that's going forward. Now, it was also reported, and well, not reported, but it has been an ongoing scenario where Terence Crawford has been trying to get a fight with Errol Spence now for the past 3 years, and Errol Spence has constantly avoided that fight, making a lot of excuses, basically saying, I'm trying to negotiate in the media, which you don't really do when you want to make a fight. You never negotiate in the media. But Errol Spence was negotiating in the media against Terence Crawford, talking about 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, or whatever they decided to give Crawford. And so that basically, never went anywhere because there was not really any real negotiations. They were just negotiating in the media. And so, as you can see, in the negotiations leading up to this announcement with Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence fighting in August, you never saw any negotiations in the media. You never saw any mention of 60-40, of what the percentage were, each fighter was going to get. It was the same with the Ugas and Errol Spence negotiations. You never saw any mention about the negotiations and what the percentages were, except for when Ugas came out in the media and reported that he wanted a 50-50 split. But you never heard a response from Errol Spence saying yay, nay, or maybe so. You heard nothing from the Errol Spence camp. They were trying to negotiate behind the scenes, because that's what happens when you want to make a fight. You negotiate behind the scenes. You don't negotiate in the media. So it has been said, and that whenever you see a fighter doesn't want to fight another fighter, he will negotiate in the media, because that's a sure way for the fight not to happen. And that's what's basically been going on with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. Errol Spence has been, negotiating in the media, and so, it's clear that he never really wanted that fight with Terence Crawford. And, besides just negotiating in the media, he has made several other excuses, about not making a fight, that Terence Crawford on the other side of the street, that Terence Crawford, isn't fighting anybody, that he's the one that's doing the heavy lifting, a whole bunch of other excuses, which culminated in the fight never actually, taking off or, becoming possible. So now we have this announcement of Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, and it's a great announcement. I mean, it's a great fight for the fans. Now, just because Spence is an easier route for Manny Pacquiao when it comes to him fighting either Crawford or Spence is likely the easier route, but that does not mean that Spence is an easy fight for Manny Pacquiao. Far from it. Okay, Crawford might be the more dangerous fighter for Pacquiao, but Errol Spence is still a dangerous fight for Manny Pacquiao. And this fight is going to be a tough one for Manny Pacquiao to become victorious. And, most people, I think, would expect that Errol Spence will defeat Manny Pacquiao in, spectacular fashion, more than likely, and probably end up stopping Pacquiao in the end. Now, Errol Spence hasn't actually stopped many fighters lately. I mean, he didn't stop Crawford. He didn't stop Porter. He didn't stop Danny Garcia. He didn't stop Mikey Garcia. So, that's his last 3 fights. So he hasn't actually stopped anyone in a good while now. But, Spence is a much bigger fighter and has more advantages against a Manny Pacquiao than he did against Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, or even Mikey Garcia. Because Manny Pacquiao is actually smaller, Mikey Garcia is actually a bigger fighter than Manny Pacquiao, in terms of height and reach. So, Spence is going to come into this fight against Manny Pacquiao with some huge advantages in height, in reach, and also in age. So at the end of the day, this should be a fairly simple fight for Errol Spence to win, based on the fact that he has all the advantages, again, like in terms of height, in terms of reach, and in terms of age. Okay, so one or two advantages that Manny Pacquiao might have is in speed. Okay, he might be a little faster than Spence, but we don't know how Manny Pacquiao looks. We haven't seen him in 2 years now. Okay, almost. I think it's coming up on 2 years since Manny Pacquiao had his last fight when he defeated Keith Thurman in a decision to take away the WBA title at that time from Keith Thurman. Okay, so we don't know how Manny's going to look, if it's going to be ring rust or what it's going to be, but we're going to have to wait and see in this fight with Errol Spence. But this should be a pretty good fight. Again, Errol Spence definitely landed a jackpot in landing this fight against Manny Pacquiao. It's a good fight for his legacy. It looks like Manny Pacquiao is going to probably retire after this fight. So in passing the torch to the next generation, he's going to be passing it to Errol Spence. And this is a great bonanza for Errol Spence. Great fight, to land this fight, with Manny Pacquiao, with Terence Crawford have been chasing for the past almost 6 years now. Okay, so Errol Spence definitely, got this one in terms of landing this fight, and that's great for his legacy. This will be a fight to build his credibility and to add to his to the fight that he already won against fighters like Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Mikey Garcia. So he's gonna add another name or another notch on his belt if he's able to defeat Manny Pacquiao in this upcoming fight. Now, although Errol Spence has all the advantages in this fight, except for speed and probably experience, we can't really count Manny Pacquiao out. Okay, I mean, he is a warrior, he is a legend, and a lot of people counted him out against Keith Thurman, and was all shocked when he actually defeated Keith Thurman, actually knocking Keith Thurman down in one of the rounds, and was able to snatch victory and the WBA welterweight belt away from the young champion in Keith Thurman. So it's not inconceivable that Manny Pacquiao can possibly win against Errol Spence, but it's not likely. And I don't know, where the money is the smart money is gonna be, what the odds are gonna be, but more than likely the odds are gonna be, the odds are gonna be in favor of Spence, and Pacquiao would probably be the underdog in this fight. Okay, at the end of the day, Spence is coming off a great win against Danny Garcia. Okay, so he's looking pretty good in there. And we haven't seen Manny Pacquiao in a fight since the Keith Thurman fight. And that fight, even though Manny Pacquiao won that fight, it was a tough fight for Manny Pacquiao. He got pretty beat up in that fight. Keith Thurman landed some good shots, especially going down the stretch when he's trying to come back after the knockdown. And I think he really hurt Manny Pacquiao in that fight. But Manny Pacquiao was able to, pull out a victory in that fight, and basically an upset, and defeated Keith Thurman. So again, it's not inconceivable that Pacquiao could somehow win this fight against Spence, but I don't think most people are going to bank on that, and I don't think it's a likely scenario. The likely scenario is that Spence will probably beat Manny Pacquiao and could possibly stop him, even though that might not be likely based on the history of Spence's past 3 fights, where he has went the distance against both. He has went the distance against Danny Garcia, Showtime Sean Porter, and Mikey Garcia, who was actually coming up from the lightweight to fight Errol Spence and still went the distance with Errol Spence. So it's not inconceivable that Errol Spence will go the distance with Manny Pacquiao. Okay, so that fight could end up being a decision, but again, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Errol Spence can possibly stop Manny Pacquiao. Now, we're gonna have to look to see how this fight is gonna play out in the end. But it should be a very interesting fight. Like I said, Manny Pacquiao is a legend. Okay, you can't count him out in any fight, and he might come in there and surprise us against Errol Spence like he did against Keith Thurman. But I'm thinking that Errol Spence is a much more disciplined fighter than Keith Thurman. Probably a stronger fighter than Keith Thurman. And even though he might not be as quick as Keith Thurman, I'm thinking that Errol Spence, is more disciplined and probably more versatile, and as well as stronger than Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman might not have as much pop in his punches as Keith Thurman though, but he does overwhelm you with a accumulation of punches, and he can he wear fighters down that way. I mean, at the end of the day, Errol Spence is a pretty skilled fighter. He one thing about Errol Spence is that he has the fundamentals down pat. He knows what the fundamentals are, and he uses them effectively in his fights. Okay, one of the great things about Errol Spence is that he's a person that uses the jab very effectively and knows what the value of a good jab is. And he has a great jab, and he used that jab to perfection, which is what a good fighter is supposed to do, because the jab is one of the most fundamental weapons in a fight in boxing. Okay, and anybody that uses a jab and knows how to use a jab effectively is already ahead of the game. And so we know that Errol Spence has a great jab. We know that Errol Spence knows how to use that jab, and we know that Errol Spence knows the value of a good jab. Okay, and he has the hook, he has the uppercuts. So Errol Spence has a versatile repertoire when it comes to punch selection, and that should give Manny Pacquiao a lot of trouble. Now, Manny Pacquiao likes to rush in, and throw that 1-2 punch that he knocked down Thurman with in their fight, and he's probably going to be rushing in on Errol Spence as well, which I'm not sure that's going to be a good thing to do, because it's conceivable that Errol Spence will catch him coming in with probably an uppercut, and lay him out with that. But again, we're going to see what strategy he's going to, Manny Pacquiao is going to bring to the table in this fight against Errol Spence, because I'm pretty sure he's going to have a plan to come in there and win, and we're going to have to wait and see what that plan, is going to be. Now, in terms of Crawford, we don't know what's going to happen next for him. And also, we're not sure what's going on with the Ugas Spence fight, if they're going to fight next, or if Spence, or if Ugas is going to take another fight instead of waiting for Errol Spence. I'm sure this was probably quite a shock. This announcement that Manny Pacquiao fight was probably quite a shock to Ugas as well. On his Twitter feed, he did say that this Manny Pacquiao Errol Spence fight is a great fight for the fan. That's what Ugas said, and he also said that just because he said he was going to fight for for unification, he wanted to unify, he did not necessarily mean that he had to unify against Errol Spence. So I'm not sure what that means. If that means him and Crawford are in negotiations for a unification fight. I hope that's the case, because that would be a great thing to see. See Crawford fight Ugas for unification, and then possibly meet up with the winner of the Errol Spence Manny Pacquiao fight. Depending on who wins that fight. So let's hope that's what's going on with Ugas, and hope that Ugas is actually negotiating the fight against Crawford, because that would be a great turn of events, and I would love to see that. Okay, because at this point we're not really sure what's going on with Ugas or with Crawford right now. again, if they're going to negotiate a fight, or if they're in negotiation, or if after this announcement they will enter negotiations, and to make this unification bout between them, while Errol Spence is fighting this fight with Manny Pacquiao, which is, there's no Manny Pacquiao has no belt at this present time, and so this fight is not a unification fight between Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. It's a situation where Manny Pacquiao is challenging Errol Spence, and he's fighting for Errol Spence's belts, but he doesn't. I'm not sure which belt he's actually fighting for, but he doesn't have a belt of himself, and so there's no unification involved in the Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence fight. So yeah, definitely a shocking turn of events. Errol Spence has scooped up this Manny Pacquiao fight, which a lot of people have been gunning for, including Sean Porter and Crawford. All wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao at some point, but it looks like Errol Spence has got the scoop, and he's going to be the one to face Manny Pacquiao, and that should be a great fight for boxing fans. Just like Yordenis Ugas said, he was spot on. So we're going to see what happened. But again, not sure what's going on with the Ugas unification. If that's still on track to happen between him and Errol Spence, or is Ugas now going to try to make a fight with Terence Crawford? And I'm not sure what actually held up the announcement of the Ugas fight, because that fight should have been announced a couple of weeks back or months back, against Errol Spence, when he was first made known that these guys were in negotiation. But again, Ugas came out with and made public the fact that he wanted 50-50, and that could have been the stumbling block as to why this fight between Errol Spence and Ugas was never announced, and instead we're seeing a fight between Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. So it could be a situation where Ugas was holding out for his 50-50 and didn't want to budge, and the opportunity to make this Manny Pacquiao fight came around, and Errol Spence just took that opportunity, and he's probably trying to see what is going to happen next in terms of the Ugas fight. If that's actually going to happen, we don't know at this point, but it could be again that Ugas might be negotiating with Crawford. I hope. At least I hope he is, and we can see that fight as well. So we're gonna have to wait and see how everything all plays out. But yeah, that's the latest news. Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao in August should be a great fight. Looking forward to seeing it. Also looking forward to see who Ugas is gonna fight next. If he's gonna fight Crawford, who Crawford is gonna fight next. If it's gonna be Ugas or someone else, we're gonna have to wait and see at this point. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there for now. That's all I have. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Okay, go to TBEBoxing.com, get the latest news, sports, and headlines, and also the latest commentary on boxing. Again, that's all I have for right now. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out.